Welcome to OLC 4.0. This is Term 1B. We are in Class 15. We'll be working on assignments 20, 21, and 22 today and learning about homophones. This is Thursday, December 7th, 2023, and I am Jillian Percy. Here is our contact information. Most important thing, try and send your work to student.work@nnec.on.ca. Sometimes people try and send it to me directly, but I still have to send it through that system because the secretary can log that you submitted the work. And that way, if something happened to me or another teacher came by, they can still access your work. If you send it to me directly, another teacher can't access my email. Always make sure on your work to include your full name, your course name, the assignment number or name, depending, and label it if it's a rough draft or a good draft. Not every assignment requires a rough draft and a good draft, but a lot of the writing assignments do. If you need to take a photograph of your assignment, please send it as an attachment to an email. If you just put it right into the body of the email, it's actually kind of hard for us to print off, and we have to kind of play with it a bit to make it work. In the blue box is all the different ways you can tune in to this show. I am in the studio right now, so if you have any questions about today's assignments, 1-800-465-7144. If you have questions about other assignments or you just don't feel comfortable talking to me on air, you can call the office at 1-800-667-3703. The extension for that is 2211. Now, obviously, I'm not there right now, so I will be there from 4 to 6 later on, and I'm usually there from 11 to 2. The fax number is 1-800-463-7852. Some people I know like to fax their work. If you have a question, you can always email me the question, jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. The YouTube has all the previous classes listed on it at G Percy space WASA. Facebook is just kind of an extra, but I know some people don't have any other way to communicate with me, and so some people do it that way too. All right, looking at some common homophones. Oh, looks like I've missed something here. Let me just take a quick look. No? Okay. So homophones are basically words that sound exactly the same, but they are spelled differently and they have different meanings, okay? And because of that, they're sometimes kind of confused. So these are one of those things you need to be careful of when you're doing your writing because spell check often won't find it, okay? Because it could be spelled correctly, you're just not using the right one in the sentence. So for example, these are two different ways to spell sight. The one spelled S-I-G-H-T means to see with your eyes. S-I-T-E refers to a physical location or a place in the internet. So I could say eagles have excellent sight, or did you choose a campsite or go to a website? Oh, I'm sorry, friends. This is a perennial problem. And again, I tackled this before I started and I thought I got it worked out, but it continues to have a problem. This is a shared computer, and so multiple people use it. So I think Google just kind of constantly wants to check and make sure that we are the right people. This word is our, and this word is our, but a lot of people say them almost the same way. This one means it's a possessive pronoun that something belongs to a group of people. Like this is our house, this is our car. This is the present tense of the verb to be. Okay, so we don't say we be going to the store, not in standard English anyways. We would say we are going to the store. That's the proper conjugation for that verb. Then we have which and which. They sound almost the same. To some people, they sound exactly the same. This one, which, W-H-I-C-H, this is a word that indicates you're going to choose between different options, like which ice cream would you like? Which movie do you want to go to? Which boy did you like? It's a choosing kind of word. This witch, W-I-T-C-H, this is a person who does magic or like a costume for Halloween, right? Witch is scary. So they have completely different meanings, right? Weak, W-E-A-K, is not strong. He has weak knees. This week, W-E-E-K, is a group of 7 days. Like this course is 9 weeks long. And off to the side here are a few more that I don't know if we do them on the next page. Hang on, I better check. Nope, we don't. Oh, we do a few. Okay. Here's some other ones: accept and accept. And again, a lot of people say them exactly the same. They are slightly different, but the A and E is very subtle. So accept is to agree to something or to receive something, like I accept the job offer, or I accept that you are upset. This accept with the EX, that means something's been excluded, right? I want all the furniture except that chair. I invited everybody except the kid that was me. Here we have weather. This kind of weather, WEATHER, this is about the temperature or the precipitation is like outside. The weather is very stormy. Weather with the WHETHER, this is one that's another kind of choice word. It also might indicate doubt. Do you know whether you will be home soon or not? I'm not sure whether I'll be home or not. Allowed and allowed. This one, ALOUD, is to say something openly rather than to just think it in your head. You can tell it's got the word loud inside of it, right? You can't read aloud in the library, or maybe your teacher says, please read the next part aloud. This allowed is the past tense of the word allow. So having permission to do something. I am allowed to drive Dad's car. I was allowed to skip school to go to the concert. This your and your, this your, oh, that is wrong. And you can tell, there it is, lovely. That instead. This is a contraction or a short form of the word you plus are. And if you're not sure which one to use, the best way to check is straighten it back out. If you think it might be this one with the apostrophe, say you and are and see if it makes sense. You're my favorite cousin. You are my favorite cousin. Yeah, that makes sense. That's correct. This your, Y-O-U-R, with no apostrophe, is a possessive pronoun, and it means something belongs to you. Is that your boat? Is your dad coming? Been and been. This been is the past participle of the verb to be. I have been outside all day. This bean is a legume. It's a type of vegetable that can be eaten. So like, I'm going to have some kidney beans on my taco. Light with the GHT are waves of energy from the sun or artificial bulbs that enable us to see, like turn on the light. This light, LITE, is a version of food that has less calories than normal. I will have the light sour cream. Now, there's also some near homophones. Those are words that don't sound exactly alike, but they're confused so commonly that sometimes people really just aren't sure which way is one, and they end up saying them both the same way. So that can be part of the confusion. So we have then and than. And again, that EA, it's such a subtle little tiny difference, okay? This then with the E is a word relating to time or sequencing. First, I am going to the store. Then I am going to the doctor's office. And the writer is saying that they're going to do their errands in a certain order. First, they're going to the store, and second, they're going to the doctor's office. Then, this is a word where you're comparing two options. I would rather go swimming than stay inside all day. So in this one, the writer's saying they want to swim more than they want to stay inside, not that they're going to swim first and then stay inside. So they're slightly different, okay? Another one, this is a really common one, is affect and affect. And again, the EA is so similar. So affect often means something's going to change or influence something. I am worried about how the death of the father is going to affect his little girl. It does have another meaning. It's not used as commonly. Doctors will sometimes say something like, he had a flat affect. And that would mean that he wasn't showing much emotion. That's a very kind of technical term. It's not used that commonly outside of hospitals and stuff. So I don't think it's going to be really used that often in our writing. It might change the person. Effect, we don't really say it like that, but effect, it's very close, refers to an action or an event that is the result of another action. It was caused by the other action. So the effect of the power going off was that all the food in the freezer went bad. So here the writer is saying that the power going off caused the food to go bad, right? So similar, but not quite the same. Okay, so now we're on reading lesson 7. Lesson 7 has a lot of like little tiny exercises that I think are really kind of fun and easy, really. Altogether, lesson 7 is worth 82 marks. So back in lesson 3, you had to fill in a thought bubble with the different forms of reading or things people read. Did you include the word textbooks? Believe it or not, writers of textbooks do their best to make reading their pages simple, and yet often students struggle with finding information they need. I'm going to voice some doubt. I don't think they always try to make their reading simple. I think they actually are sometimes trying to make things a little bit complicated because they want to make sure students are reading at a certain level. So I actually disagree with that a little bit. There are certain features that most writers of textbooks include to help students, but often these features are not appreciated because they're misunderstood by people. For example, look at all the details in the sample of a textbook page on page 12. That's in your unit. The amount of information crammed on one page can make you tired even before you begin reading. It really depends. I actually find older textbooks weren't quite as busy. Newer textbooks, I think, have so much information that sometimes can be really hard to know where to start or what parts aren't important. So this is kind of what we're talking about today. So assignment 20 is called Understanding a Textbook, and it is worth 15 marks. So many people consider skimming and scanning search techniques rather than a reading strategy. But when reading large volumes of information, it may be a lot more practical than reading. For example, you might be searching for specific information, looking for clues, or maybe just reviewing information. So skimming is used to quickly identify the main ideas of a text. When you read the newspaper or a textbook, you're probably not reading it word for word, especially textbooks. You might be just kind of skimming the text, like reading at a speed kind of 3 to 4 times faster than normal reading. People often skim when they've got a lot of material to read in a very limited amount of time. So you can use skimming when you want to see if an article may be of interest in your research. So let's say I'm writing an article on the Carolinian art renaissance in medieval times. And I see an article on medieval times, and I'm just flipping through it quickly to see if it discusses the art renaissance. And if it doesn't, I'm not going to bother reading the whole thing. So the higher up you get in high school, the more you might be using skimming to understand things in history, things in science, humanities, those kind of things where you're reading a lot of information, but you only need to understand bits and pieces of it. There are many strategies that can be used when skimming. Some people try and read the first and the last paragraphs, use headings and summaries as they move down the page of the screen. You might read the title or the subtitles, subheadings and illustrations. You could also consider reading the first sentence of each paragraph. Remember, as we've been studying the paragraph format, the first sentence is supposed to be a topic sentence. So that technique can be really useful if you're looking for specific information rather than reading the entire textbook for comprehension. And it really depends what your purpose for reading is. Skimming can work really well to find dates, names, places, and very specific information. It might be used to review graphs, tables, or charts. Scanning is a little bit different. It's a technique you often use when you're looking up a number in the telephone book or a word in a dictionary. And you kind of like let your eyes just look for key words or key ideas. In these kind of cases, you might know what you're looking for, so you're concentrating on finding a very specific answer or word. You may be moving your eyes quickly down or around the page, seeking specific words or phrases. Scanning is also used when you first find a resource to determine whether it will answer your questions. Once you've scanned the document, you might go back and skim it. When scanning, look for the author's use of organizers, such as numbers, letters, steps, or the words first, second, or next, which give you sequences. Look for words that are bold-faced, in other words, they're darker, in italics, that's that slanted kind of writing, or in a different font size, style, or color. Sometimes an author might put key ideas in the margin, maybe even like in a little colored box. For textbooks in particular, the table of contents can help you find information more quickly. The glossary can help you find the definitions. The index can help you locate a certain topic within the textbook. And graphics or visuals can give you visual representation of what the text is saying. Margin notes and bolded text can emphasize what are the most important points. Skimming the text. So here's an example. When you're looking at, like, this is a lot of information. So maybe I'm looking for a word or a specific phrase, and you just kind of picture that in your mind and you're trying to find a match. So let's say I'm looking for words on Indigenous and women, and I'm just quickly looking for that capital I and the W, okay? And I'm not reading every single thing. All right, here's the word Indigenous. And so now I'm going to read that sentence. Rather, it was a complex system influenced by evolving geopolitics, colonial relations, Indigenous alliances, and shifting market conditions. So that is about Indigenous, but it's not about Indigenous woman per se. So I'm going to kind of keep on reading and see if I can find, we've got a bunch of different ways to talk about women here and Indigenous people. We've also got the phrase women's work in Indigenous societies. So I don't need to read this part, but I might read this part more clearly. Sisters, wives, and daughters of merchants, military officers, and political officials were involved in the trade. Likewise, Indigenous people were active participants in the transatlantic market economy. The French relied on Indigenous men and women to hunt fur-bearing animals and to process the furs. Washing the furs, scraping off the dirt, flesh, and blood vessels, and stretching them over wood frames to dry was women's work in Indigenous societies. And then there's not a lot of alt stuff specifically about women, Indigenous women. So that's where I don't have to read everything because I'm trying to find certain information. That's an example. Here, I'm just going to kind of quickly go through this, and you can see some of the drawings, the different kinds of text features that are available. I thought this was kind of cute, so we'll see. It doesn't really have words, I don't think. It's more just things. It says, welcome 00 student, execute retinal scan, access granted. Today's mission, hello class. Your mission for today is to apply everything you know about nonfiction text features. Now, before you start, let's take a closer look at some of the nonfiction text features we already know. What are our nonfiction text features? Here they're listed, a whole bunch of them. Titles, headings, table of contents, index, bibliography. I can't even read all that fast here. Glossary. So a glossary are definitions of words that are important to the subject you're reading, kind of like a little mini dictionary. So this is a glossary for a book about geology or earth science. Fonts and bold print words, highlighting certain words to bring attention to them. These words are usually found in the glossary, but not always, might be on the side or even in the text. Pictures with captions. Captions are like a sentence. Drawings or photographs that have a written explanation of what is happening in the picture. For example, here it says the men in black are prepared for the next mission. Charts, graphs, and maps, visuals that are used to explain a topic in more detail. If you could have any superpower, what would it be? And here there's a little graph talking about the different types of superpowers that you might have, okay? Titles, headings, and subheadings located before you read a chapter or section. They provide clues to the information you're getting ready to read. Index. An index is an alphabetical list of names or subjects with page numbers, and it's usually located at the back. Sometimes you might see one at each chapter heading, depends on the book. Table of contents is a list of chapters in a non-fiction book, and it provides clues to what each chapter is about. Layout. How information is displayed on the page. It includes the white space, the placement of pictures, charts, maps, etc. So here, the nice layout helps me understand photosynthesis. Bibliography is a list of other books and websites to find more information about the subject you're reading. It also should tell you where they got their information from. So here it's listing some different websites that you might want to go to get more information about gorillas. All right, let's see. Okay, so just kind of a quick review in case it's been a while since you've studied those. Okay, so here are some questions, and then we're going to look at a textbook page to answer the questions. Now, it's a bit tiny in your actual package, so if you're stuck and having trouble reading it, you can always go to How to Read a Textbook Page Fun Facts on a computer and read the on-screen version, because you can make it bigger or smaller. And I've tried this multiple times. It is still there. That is not a broken link. You can go in and find it, okay? So let's look at these questions, and then we're going to kind of take a look around and see if we can find things. A, what is the first thing that catches your attention? B, what is a subheader? C, who wrote The Alphabet versus the Goddess? D, what is the main idea of this page? E, what are some of the techniques used on the page to draw your attention to certain areas? F, what will you usually find at the beginning of most chapters? G, name 3 examples of typography, which we talked about yesterday. H, what is the purpose of typography? I, what types of lists do writers and publishers use? And J, what do students need to know about supplemental information? And finally, K, why are textbooks frequently color-coded? So in your unit, you'll see this, and here's the URL for it. This is, I know, really hard to read. I've kind of expanded it on the next page so we can kind of look at things and read them. Okay, so this is the top half. So one of the things they asked was, what kind of catches your eye first thing? So just looking at this, what does catch your eye? I would say the highlighting here or the heading here is the two things that capture my eye. So here is kind of like a pretend textbook, and here are some of the things that you can find. A lot of times if you're looking for your answers, here is where you're going to find them. So here we have vocabulary, determine which words student must know in order to read this assignment successfully. Here, they've put it on the side, and that's a common way, but you might also find that it's in the text and they've bolded it. Here's an example of bolded writing where they make it darker. Locate the main idea. Look to the first and last sentences to find the main idea of each paragraph. You can also look at the headers and the subheaders. So here would be the big header for the page, maybe even for the chapter. We don't know. It's kind of a pretend one. Here is the subheader. It usually is a little bit smaller in font. It might be a slightly different font. It might be underlined. It's usually not quite as eye-catching as the main header. Conventions. Explain what different abbreviations might mean. Most textbooks use italics and bold typeface to indicate new items and those that are listed in the glossary. Always ask how or why is the writer using italics? Are they trying to indicate a new word, a book's title, Are they trying to emphasize an idea? Pre-reading, have students do the following before they read. They can look at the objective, the headers, the subheaders, the section questions, terms to know, or the identified theme. And doing that can kind of give you a little bit of an overview of the big picture of the chapter before you kind of dive deep and look at all the details. Sidebars are these little things on the side. Sometimes they're in like little boxes, sometimes they're colored. They offer information that complements the text, but it's not always crucial to the text. Sometimes they might give you like a website to go check out, or a fun fact, or did you know, this kind of thing. Up top here is the chapter or the section heading. Make sure students use all the headings and the subheadings to orient themselves. Before reading, you could even have them write down questions or predictions about the subject based on the title or the headings. This part here is called the header. It's not the same thing as the chapter heading. This header will often show up on like every page in the chapter. Sometimes it might change, but it might have the exact same words for the entire chapter so you can find things. There might be icons or symbols. Textbooks will often use them in a standardized way. You might see one and ask, what does that refer to? Sometimes it's showing you activities or connections or cross-curricular links or multimedia tools. So here it's listing a daily strategy of asking questions and how you could do it. Pull boxes are kind of similar to sidebars. They usually will feature content like connections, features, strategies, or profiles. Textual organization. Textbooks organize information into lists or paragraphs. Here, the boxed words indicate the different examples of the paragraph's main idea. Words like first, another, or finally would indicate that the info has been sequentially or chronologically arranged. Okay, here is the bottom half of this page. Eye-catching, this kind of catches my eye first of all. A short note to the teacher or user of this page. I created, not me, by the way, the person who actually wrote this. I created this page after listening to my students make the following comments. I don't understand how to read the page. It has all these colors and boxes and symbols on it, and I don't know what they mean or what I'm supposed to do with them. I get totally confused. Or I don't understand what the directions say, or I don't understand what the directions want me to do. So a short list of essential skills students need would be able to identify the main idea on a page, distinguish between important and irrelevant information. Irrelevant just means like unimportant. Determine which questions to ask and how and when to ask them. Determine if they understand the information they read, and if they didn't, understand what strategies to use to increase their comprehension. So lists, sometimes the lists might have everything arranged equally, like they're all equally important. Sometimes they might have the most important things up top and the least important on the bottom. Reading directions, it might say directions or might say instructions. You want to read those very carefully and make sure you understand what to do. If you're not sure, you can go through and look at the verbs. There's often some key verbs that tell you what they want you to do, or they might have the expected outcome. Write an essay, take a test, draw a picture. Sometimes you can rewrite it as a little checklist so that you know what to do and what order to do it in. Pre-reading. Remember we talked about how you might want to read the discussion questions before they start reading so they know what they need to understand and find. Sometimes that makes the text kind of like pop out at you when you go to read it again. Here's an example of some supplemental info, fun facts. This is stuff that you wouldn't necessarily have to know to understand the textbook, but it might be fun to know or interesting to know or a nice jumping off point. Here, there's a little internet connection and gives you a little URL you could check out if you want to read some more on it. Figures. Figures is just kind of the textbook way of talking about visuals. A figure could be anything. It could be a little pull box like this. It could be a map, chart, a table, a graph, anything. And they just kind of call them all figures. The 5 would usually refer to like the chapter, and the 12 would be, okay, it's the 12th one in the chapter. Let me think here. Color codes. Sometimes there's special colors like, oh, this part's going to be about math, or this part's going to be about this era. That kind of depends. All right. So you would use that to answer all these questions, okay? This is nice, simple stuff. I think that's worth about 15 marks in my memory of that. All right. Then we're going to go on to assignment 21. Textbook features. This one is also worth 15 marks. You can select any subject that interests you, science, geography, and you can choose a textbook at your learning center. It doesn't have to be your textbook, like one that you're using. And you can even go to the grade school in your community and ask them if you could borrow one of your science textbooks just to do this assignment. You could sit right there and spend 20 minutes and be finished the assignment, okay? You're going to use, there's a little table that I'm going to show you. You record some answers. You may not know or understand what all the features are, but your job is to try and find them, okay? This exercise is just kind of an attempt to get you to practice interacting with and investigating the features of a text. Just be careful. You cannot use Jimmy Comes Home to do this assignment because it's not a textbook, it's a novel. So it's not going to have all these features, so it won't really work. If you don't have access to any physical copies of textbooks, like you're not near a learning center, there's not really a school nearby, or you don't think they're going to lend you it, or you feel kind of shy to ask, if you put in textbook PDF finder, a lot of different textbooks will often come up. Sometimes there's sites that may be members only, or they want you to have money or something. But if you hunt around, it's often possible to find PDF versions of textbooks on different websites. So here's an example. I'm going to kind of click on this, I think. Let's see here. Okay, so here's an example of what I mean. It's telling you here 10 best websites to download free PDF books. Let's try this out and see. Okay. Oh, sorry. Nope, go away. Let me think. Okay. Because you're just looking at it, it's only illegal if the website is providing pirated content. Hopefully it's not. Okay. Let's see if this one will work. Smashwords. Oh, okay. So was that textbooks? It's not really textbooks, these one. I've had good luck going to Pearson. Oh, okay. Wait. Yeah, this kind of stuff. Internet Archive. Okay. And I'm going to just like look up something like math textbook or something. Let's see. Oh, okay. How about, let's see, history textbook. Oh, it doesn't like that at all. Okay. It's too general, I'm guessing, for it. Let me see here. Books. All books. American libraries, Canadian libraries. Let's try. Oh, okay. All right. So this does work because I have played with it, but I'm having trouble finding things right now. But you definitely can find some things. Pearson, I'm going to write that down here. Pearson is a good website because they have textbooks. The other place you can sometimes find it is if you go to Amazon. They often have a little feature where you can see parts of the textbook. That's another possibility. Okay, here's what the table looks like. And it asks you what is the title of the textbook, and you'd write whatever textbook you picked. So this is different for every single person. Like I've had anyone do the same one twice at this point. Who are the authors? It should be listed on the front cover. If it's not, try the cover page. How many pages does the textbook have? If you look at the end, you should be able to see. What is the name of the publisher? It will often say something like such and such publishers or so-and-so publishing house. What is the ISBN? I'm going to help you. The ISBN is a unique number that every book ever made has, because there are special libraries that make sure to keep like kind of one copy of the book printed in, usually in their own country, I think. Where is the ISBN located? I think it used to be like 10 digits. I think right now it's 13 digits. If you look around, often on the back, look for the barcode and you'll see some little digits all in a row. It'll look a little bit like a really long phone number. Look for that. Create a citation. We haven't really talked about citations. Citation is when you're telling the reader where you got information from. Now, they kind of put a little example in there, and some people took that to mean that it was done. No, no, no. That's just an example of how to write it. So you'd put the name of the author first, the title, you'd underline the title, the publisher location, like it's often like New York or Toronto, it's the two main ones. And then the name of the publisher, and then the date of the publication. Okay. If there's more than one date, you could use the first one, right? It's not uncommon for a textbook to first have been written in like 2000 and then have been updated in, say, 2010. That's fine. Where is the table of context? How is the information in the table of contents organized? Is it by topic? Is it chronologically? Is it alphabetically? You tell me. How many chapters does the textbook have? And where would you find that information? Where is the index? How is the information organized? The information in the index. We kind of actually talked about that already. Does this textbook have any other sections at the end of the book beside the index? List them. Different textbooks might have different things. It really depends. It might have glossaries. It might have answers if it was like a math textbook. It might have cross-curricular connections or websites to look at. There's all sorts of things it might have. You don't have to list everything it might have. Just check it and see what it actually does have. Occasionally it doesn't have anything else. That's fine too. Okay. So, oh, here it is. I knew I had this somewhere. Here is a sample textbook online to show you what I mean. Let's see here. I knew I had this somewhere. I couldn't find it. So this is a text. Let me see if I can make it a little bit. I make it smaller. Yeah, here. Okay. So the title is Issues for Canadians. And for this one, you can see the author is, there's like 4 authors because it's a textbook. So textbooks are usually not written by just one person. And right there would be my publisher. This is all the team. You don't need all the team. You would just list the authors. These people might do all sorts of different jobs. Oh, look right here. You got some ISBNs. Copyright is telling you when they first kind of made it usually. Let me see. Anything else important there? Not really, I don't think. Oh, okay. Here's our table of contents. And how have they organized it? Here, it looks like they've got big questions about Canadian rights, political systems. And then they've organized it by how to answer those questions, which is that's not a typical way to do that, by the way. Okay. And we've got a skills center, a glossary, an index. All right. So I would go through my questions and I would look for this one. Oh, you can see I can go right back to the end here. Might take a little while to load. Anyways, I can totally just flip through this and get all my questions answered one by one. Okay. Okay. How's my time? I am going to come back to this for practice if we have time, because we got about 11 minutes left. This is just a quick little video on how to scan. And then we have a quick little video on how to skim if you haven't done it before. Oh, wait. Okay. We talked about it before, and then here we're basically applying it. This is another 15 mark one, okay? There is some textbook pages that are going to follow, and they'll help you answer the questions. I want to kind of go over the questions though, because sometimes people get kind of mixed up. You should not need to read the entire textbook page. You're going to practice skimming, okay? So first, you're skimming over the whole passage to gain an overall impression or main idea. Remember that skimming is quickly glancing over the passage to determine the general content of the passage. And how do we say we were going to do that? You can look at the subheadings. You could look at the first sentence in the paragraphs. Sometimes you could look at the chapter title. Now, it says in one sentence, write down what you think the passage is about. What's the big idea of these 4 pages? But look, it's telling you that this is worth 5 marks. So you want to convey as many details as possible in that one sentence. So it's actually worth 5 marks, right? If you just say, oh, it's about Canadian history, that's kind of too vague. I'm going to give you 1 mark. It's just not specific enough. Remember that compound and complex sentences are a great way to include a lot of details in one sentence. The other thing is, remember that the main idea should be general enough and big enough that everything you're reading could be tied back in to that main idea. Okay? So let's say I had an article that was about comparing Barbie to the Oppenheimer movie. There was a lot of that kind of stuff going on in the summertime, right? If I said that it was only about the Barbie movie, I wouldn't have the main idea because I'm not explaining both sides. I would need to write a main idea that incorporates both parts of that article. I could say that this review is talking about the similarities and differences between Barbie and Oppenheimer or whatever, but I would have to include both parts of it for it to be the main idea. So keep it in mind as you're doing this, okay? Then there is B. Now it's talking about scanning the passage to find the answers to the following questions, and then write your answers in full sentences. Remember, scanning is when you're looking for a specific word or an image that'll allow you to answer specific questions. And we have number 1 says, what were the men and older boys responsible for? Give 3 reasons why Indigenous family relationships baffled Europeans. So when I'm scanning, I am going to look for this phrase, Indigenous family relationships baffled Europeans, right? I'm going to look for that phrase and then see if it lists 3 reasons. And if it does, I know I'm in the right spot and I'm going to use those, okay? Now we have 3. Why were the families of the early Indigenous people considered egalitarian? Now, you have to make sure you understand, what does the word egalitarian mean? If you're not sure, you can make a guess, you can look it up in the dictionary, do whatever you like, but make sure you understand it so that you're able to answer it. This is, I think, one of the harder questions. Why did European men often live with or marry Indigenous women? Again, you'll have to look and find out. So here are your passages, okay? So if I was doing my first question where I'm looking at the headings and the subheadings and the first sentence in the paragraph, I've got the history of parenting is often remembered with a nostalgic view and assumption that it was better now. I've got the heading family history in Canada. I've got the subheading of Aboriginal families. And then it says family history in Canada began with the hunter-gatherer societies of the Aboriginal people. Again, I'm not going to read the whole thing. After 1500 BCE, many groups of Aboriginals began to give up their nomadic way of life. The arrival of the Europeans in North America between 1500 and 1700 meant the end of their former way of life for many Aboriginal groups. And then I'm looking at the next first sentence. The marriages were considered temporary, and when the fur chasers returned to Europe, their Aboriginal wives and children would often return to their original families. Let me see here. The Aboriginal peoples had a very different sense of family than the Europeans, whose society was very male dominated. First sentence. They placed a high value on their children and raised them with care. Looking at the changes in the Aboriginal people's family life from the arrival of the Europeans to the present time, from a systems perspective, there is dramatic evidence of how a change in one part of the system can affect the entire system. And then it goes on to talk about European families, it says here. In the 1600s and 1700s, marriage and family patterns in Canada varied greatly. I can see it's about to talk about Quebec. Schooling was not compulsory for children during this time. Difficult conditions that existed at this time, such as poor sanitation, disease, inadequate housing, and a lack of medical knowledge, led to high infant mortality rates, as well as shorter lifespans for adults. So what I just did there, that is called skimming. I've just kind of quickly looked for the main points of this article, and then I would try and summarize it in a really good sentence. And then I would scan and try and answer those specific questions. Hang on. Okay. Yeah, assignment 23, we've got 4 minutes. Visuals and information text, this is worth 12 marks. You should be able to answer the first question, these questions. For some reason, this first section, a lot of people find really hard. It says, what kind of visual, they're looking for a graph, a line graph, a bar graph, or a circle graph, do you think would best show the following employment data from Statistic Canada's Labour Force Survey 2021? Hint, you might remember making this kind of visual in math class. Sketch the visual you would use. And there's a little 5. The 5 means that's worth 5 marks. And here's the information they want you to sketch. In 2021, approximately 6 million people were working in Ontario, of which 54% were male workers and 46% were female workers. 82% worked full-time, 18% worked part-time. 84% were employees, 16% were self-employed. Now, I sometimes have people hand me in this or this. I will not even mark those, okay? This is more like a pretend graph. When they're saying sketch, they don't just mean draw a fake old graph. They just mean that you don't have to get out your ruler and your compass and draw a perfect graph on graph paper like you would for math. But it still needs to be a proper graph. It still needs to have labels and titles and numbers, identifying what the information is about. One key point, not all graph types are able to show us the type of information they're asking us to display. So if you can't figure out how to show that information with that type of graph, don't use that type of graph. Pick a different one. Here are the 3 they mentioned. Here is a circle graph, and you can see it's got a title, it's got different parts, the parts are labeled, and there's numbers explaining it. Here is a line graph. You can see there is numbers and labels down the side, numbers across this. There's only 2 lines, but they wanted me to display 6 pieces of information. I don't know if I can do that with a line graph. Here we've got a bar graph, and you can see there's numbers along the side. There's a title showing me what it shows. There's some other information on the bottom explaining things. Your graphs need to look more like this, okay? And then the second part is there's a little article here on Beaver Brae secondary students, and then they ask 3 little questions about it, okay? And you do have to answer these questions. What kind of visual is used here, right here in this area? Possible visual types include graphs, diagrams, maps, charts, tables, photographs, drawings, etc. Why do you think this was chosen? They mean this visual. What purpose does it have? What does it add to the story? Why did they bother? Why not just have the text? Do you think it is effective in conveying information? Please don't just tell me yes, it's effective. Why is it effective? What kind of information is it telling us? How does it help the story? Okay, what is it doing there? I don't know if we're even really going to go on to that. Okay. So this is really important. I find for some reason with this one, people either seem to answer this part and skip the top, or they answer the top and they don't remember to do this. There is room if you write carefully on here for this question, but for this one, there really isn't much room. You're going to need to do this one on a separate page, okay? You're going to want to label it, okay? I should be able to tell. I should see 54% and 46%. I should see the words male workers and female workers somewhere on there, okay? I should see 82% full-time. I should see 18% part-time. I should see a title. Remember, the title is going to tell us what we're looking at. Maybe there's something in the question that would help us figure out a good title. I have had some people give me 3 smaller graphs to show this information, and that is a fine solution as long as you label each one, okay? We're not going to go any further today. That is plenty of information. Those are assignment 20, 21, 22, 23, okay? See what you can do, and then we will talk again on Monday. Thank you so much for showing. Give me a phone call if you're having problems with anything, okay? Bye, everybody.